Hi guys, welcome back to Thread and Glue Designs. Today we're going to work on the opening page in my watercolor sketchbook. And you'll see here I'm just putting a base color down. And I mixed a little bit of yellow with a little bit of brown. And that's where I came up with that color. I'm using a Princeton Snap brush here. And it's the wide brush in order to do larger washes. I did this drawing first with pencil, and then I went back over with a Micron black pen, the PN version, and made sure it was good and dry and set before I started doing the watercolor. I just have a little plastic sheet back behind it so that it will protect the sheet underneath from getting any of the color on it. This was an interesting drawing for me. I don't normally do very many florals, but I'm trying to get a little bit more into florals and that kind of thing. I have flipped my book here, and as you can tell, I somehow forgot to press record in there. So I did the leaves in some greens, in varying shades of green. And I'm working on the orchid there with multiple purples. And I am trying to kind of ombre those colors out so that you get a nice fade from dark to light, center out. And this brush that I'm using is also a Princeton Snap in a different size. If you hear any whining in the background, I apologize. That is my daughter's dog, Remy. She is in here while my daughter is working on some things, and I just realized I had that fan on. I'm sorry. When I'm pausing there, I'm not really pausing. I'm actually mixing color and cleaning my brush. I'm adding the yellow into the middle to brighten that up as it would normally be on an orchid. I'm not exactly the greatest at hand lettering, but I gave it a shot. Don't think it came out too bad. That is something I would like to learn more how to do, various hand lettering styles. I really had a lot of fun with this painting. I was in my craft room working on this at 2:30 in the morning. Everyone in the house was quiet. So I just sat in there very quietly with my paints and just played for a while, and it was really nice. It was a really peaceful time. It's kind of nice sometimes just to shut the world out and all of the noise, especially if you're an introvert like me. You'll notice here that there's a little petal right there on the bottom that I missed, but I will pick that back up later on. And I way overdid this purple here on this leaf. So you see me dabbing it, trying to pull up some of the color. Which it's not bad. At the end, it turns out fine. But I really did not intend on fully coloring that one in with purple. I did do a border around the outside edge of this page before I even started the drawing. I drew a border with pencil so that I could erase in the places that I didn't want the pencil lines or didn't want the lines. And you'll see I'm going in here. I'm trying to clean that up a little bit, but as you know with watercolor, once it's down, it's pretty well down. So I will in the end go over those white areas with my white Signo pen. Goodness, it took me a while to get that out, didn't it? And I am quite messy. I don't know how I avoid bigger messes than I do. But that's part of why I'm part of the messy crafters, I guess, huh? No comment from you, Jen and Zena. All right, and as you can tell, I'm working on some more coloring, and this is a silver black velvet brush, and I'm working on this lotus flower, and I know the color of a lotus flower, what it should be. And so I'm just doing a little bit of blue in here to try and give it just a little bit of a hint of color. That little first line I put in there is way too dark. I will lighten that up. In order to lighten those up, you do want to go ahead and dab them with your paper towel before you get very far. Otherwise, the ink, the color will soak right into the paper and stain it. But I'm trying to go into the places where there would be some shadow or some turning over, some limbs turning over. It's not limbs, it's petals. Petals turning over. But just giving it that hint of blue will actually make that flower stand out more. You'll see that I just strictly used watercolor paints for this, and that's fine, but I am considering going back and using some colored pencil just to give myself a little more depth in the areas that I want. So we'll see if I do that or not, but this is my opening page, so I wanted it to kind of be interesting, but actually say who it belonged to for any reason that it would get lost. I will put my address underneath, or my phone number underneath my name there, just so that whoever might find it would be able to contact me. I did not think to do that in this video, but I will go back and do that with the micron pen. You'll see how the petals kind of start standing apart on this, and that's good. That's what you want. You want the petals to start looking like individual petals and not like one massive clump. This silver black velvet brush is really nice to work with. When I first got my first silver black velvet brush, I hated it. I thought it was the most awful brush ever. It just soaked up way too much water and it was hard to control. But I have since learned how to control it a little bit better, and doing that, I just dab it a little bit on the paper towel after I get my paint so it doesn't have a lot of overflowing water, and that really seems to make it workable for me. So I have bought a couple of extra ones of that brand because I do like the way the bristles are in it, and I like the way it feels in your hand when you're working with it. I would like to eventually get the red dot set of spotters from Rosemary & Company. I've heard those were really, really good, and I watch Kathy Arbor a lot, and she does a lot with those and raves about how good they are. The only problem I've had with ordering them so far is I didn't want to pay the shipping because it is out of country. But I will break down and do it because I really do want those brushes. I say I'll break down and do it. If I can't find an alternative to them, I will break down and do that. But it is a really nice set. Rosemary & Company has very nice brushes. I have purchased a brush from them before, but many years ago. It has not been anything recent, and I don't even still have the brush. I went through and gave all of my art supplies to my youngest daughter after they sat for a couple of years because I had this major art block and just wasn't pleased with anything that I did. So, it happens sometimes. But a good lesson is that eventually, if you loved it once, you're going to come back to love it again. You just have to be in the right season of your life to enjoy it. So you'll see here I'm putting in some of the gamboge color. It's a yellow, and it goes on a little bit heavy. I don't want it that heavy, so I will blot it off because I want to see that pen work in the middle to give those little squiggles and things in there to show that those are actually like the stamen of the flower. Y'all like that? I know a big word. You never know what I might come up with. But this flower actually does turn out really nice. I'm really pleased with how this whole portrait, not a portrait, this whole, what do you call this? It's a made-up still life. I made it up in my head. I went and looked up random flowers and stuck them where I thought they might work. I don't know if anybody else does crazy stuff like that, but That's how I come up with a lot of stuff. Here you'll see that I am doing these little berries, but I'm using a magenta color, and I doubt berries are ever magenta, but that's okay. That's what color I wanted in there. It is a little bit dark for me, so I do kind of pat that off a little bit. Copper, be careful. Sorry, Copper is trying to itch himself, and he's catching his claws in my carpet. So you'll see that I did pat those off to kind of lighten it some, but I think it lightened a little bit too much. I'm not sure if I go back and add some more or not, because at the end you'll see that I do the border, and a lot of that stands out more in the end. Here I am continuing those berries on the other side. And one thing to note is that with these berry plants, I did not draw an actual stem. I just drew a line to represent it. And while that was fine for drawing it, when I went to paint it, there really wasn't anything for me to paint except for just to go over the line. So you'll see that I do that, but in the future I will try and actually make a stem there, so that it has a little bit more color that will stick together there, because it does kind of wash out when I do the border. And still working here. And you'll notice that my my sketchbook is all upside down, and that's okay. I twist and turn my sketchbook the entire time I'm working on it in order to suit where my hand needs to go. And anytime you're working on an art project, I fully recommend you do that. I don't know how artists ever do it without moving their paper, because my hand gets in everything. And this is the only way I can prevent getting more of a mess than I do. This is my first voiceover, guys. I'm hoping it turns out good and that you guys like this format, because I really enjoy listening to various types of music while I do my art and crafting. And when recording your voice, and with YouTube, as you know, you cannot record music in order to use unless it's royalty free, and we all know royalty free music is not that great. So I'm hoping this will work out really good, and I'll be able to do more videos for you more frequently. And we flipped back upright so we can work on another area. I do like the dimension, and I keep getting notifications on my computer. I've got to learn how to quit letting everything play in the background. I am just playing with color here. I just wanted to have some pretty color in these areas, just to kind of make it stand out. Who doesn't love color, right? Yes, I am colorblind, but I still love color. I can still see color. I just have difficulty with varying shades of color. Don't do that. Don't use your finger to dab something up. Use a towel. I get a little stupid sometimes. And sometimes I just don't want to act right. This is really a fun beginning. It's the first time I've ever made an actual beginning to a sketchbook. I, in the past, have just worked right into it, and usually I hated the first page. But I'm hoping once I finish this sketchbook to actually do a sketchbook tour of it, and go through all of the pages and just kind of revisit what's going on. You'll notice that I'm using a different color here, a different shade. I am trying to get that little bit of an ombre look between the first color and the second color. And I'm adding some for depth on the outer edges of the first colors to kind of tie that together a little more. You don't know how well this actually was achieved, But in the future, if I will just wet that area first and drop my color in, I can get a much better ombre that way of color. I don't know what I was thinking. Maybe I wasn't thinking. That's probably the whole point, right? That is my full name, if anybody did not know. This is the Red and Glue Designs channel, but I am Stephanie Bolden, the voice behind Thread and Glue Designs and the creativity. Here we go with another color. I really like to use multiple colors when I can. It makes the page a lot more interesting to me. I see so many variations and really enjoy that. And working on getting another color together. And what I may do in the future when I'm just doing single lines, I may use actually a colored micron instead of trying to go over it with the watercolor to get the color, because I think I would get much nicer, cleaner lines, and I just didn't think about it before I did this. But that's okay. It kind of gave me a good chance to play and learn more with my brushes so that I could get my pressure on my brushes right in order to get the thickness and thinness of lines that I wanted. So if you ever need to practice that, writing words is a good way to do it. And drawings with multiple thicknesses and variations will help that too. Back to the Princeton Snap brush here. But you see the color really doesn't stand out a whole lot going over my name. I mean, you can see it, but I think it would be so much nicer if I just wrote it in a nice, colorful, thicker pen. I don't want to use marker. I do have alcohol markers, but I don't want to use them on watercolor paper because the watercolor paper is meant to be absorbing. So that will actually absorb your ink from your tip, and you will lose a lot more ink than you should. Well, the doggies are playing now, so if you hear noises, I'm sorry. It's just my life. These babies are my life. So, continuing on working with this name. Shh, hush. They're so funny sometimes. They keep me quite entertained. I hope you guys are getting ready for a beautiful Christmas season. I was kind of thinking I might go through and do a special broadcast this next week instead of our regular series that we're working on, and actually go through and read the Christmas story to you. I think that would be really nice. A lot of times we think we know the Christmas story, and we do, a lot of us, but it's always nice to have a refresher on what actually went down. I don't know if you think of things like that in the Bible, but I want to know what's going on. I want to know what actually happened, who did it, where they did it, why they did it, and what was it for. So I think I will do that. I will be reading the Christmas story, and it will be up by Wednesday at the latest, is what I'm trying to do with all of those videos. And we're coming to the end of my last name here. You're getting a little too rough. Copper. Okay, so we do still have the word sketchbook and belongs. I don't recall if I actually go over those. I may. I did this, as you know, 2:30 in the morning, so my memory of that is not really hitting too well on that. We do still have a flower up in that corner, the peony flower, in order, and that peony flower is by no means an accurate drawing of that. I just knew I'd seen some peonies that I liked and remembered them, and so I just tried to throw one together out of memory. And you never know what you get when you do that, right? So I do apparently go in here and put some color in there, which is good because I do like color there. I thought I might, but you know, you never remember quite right. I hope you've gotten all of your Christmas shopping done and all of your torturous deeds out in public. That's what they are for me. I don't like the whole hustle and bustle part. I don't mind. I like giving gifts, but I do want everyone to know why we celebrate Christmas in the first place. And so I will try to make sure that everybody does and is aware of that. Even as your kids get older, a lot of times they don't pay attention when they're younger. They may learn a few little things, but they're not going to learn everything. And yes, I am a lefty, total lefty. And more of a lefty than I thought I was, because I used to only cut with right-handed scissors, but that's because that's what we had available. That's what my grandma always had in her sewing room. But I went to cosmetology school and actually used left-handed shears, and they were amazing. So when I got back into crafting, I had to try left-handed scissors. And I have the Tim Holtz left-handed scissors that have the micro serration. They are freaking amazing. Just so you know, if you're a lefty, you have to give them a try. I do have the right-handed mini snips that my sweet friend Jen got me. And if I ever replace those with the left-handed ones, I will pass them on to my other good friend, who I'm trying desperately to get to try these scissors. It makes such a big difference, you would not believe. Just like a real bone folder makes a big difference than that plastic nylon thing. I can't believe they call that a bone folder, but that's a whole nother topic. So we're getting ready to go into this peony, and I really like the colors of this peony, how they come out. And you'll see that here we're using that Princeton snap brush. I start out being really delicate, but then I realize everything needs a wash of color, so I just go over the whole thing. And then I go back into it and add my details. And that worked a whole lot better. I don't know what I was thinking trying to work real small. We're back to the silver black velvet brush. As you can tell, I moved up to a larger brush. I am very heavy-handed normally, so I'm trying with my watercoloring to get myself used to using the colors more watered down so that I can get some lighter shades in first and get an idea of where I want to go with things. A lot of times it's too late once you're as heavy-handed as I am with paint. I've always painted with acrylic paints in the past, and I've even worked with some oils once or twice. That's very little work with, you know, the Bob Ross style. I think everyone has tried Bob Ross style. But I am really finding that I am enjoying working with the watercolors more. I enjoy that they're a lot easier to clean up. I enjoy how easy it is to make different varying shades of the same color with just water. In acrylics, as you know, you have to mix your colors a lot of times with white or with black or one of the other colors. You know what I mean. And so that takes a lot of mixing and working, which is fine if you're working with acrylics and you want to do that. But it's really refreshing not to have to. You see here I'm working wet and wet, and it's blooming a little bit more in places that I wanted. But there are other places that I have figured out that I've gotten it the way I wanted it. That first initial one was quite dark for me. But she's working. She's working it out. I'm working. And it's turning out really good. So, so my daughter just came in and got the big dogs to go out of here, which is wonderful. Now we won't have that bustling in the background. The big one, the cat, came in. She likes to hide out in here in my room. And of course, Honey stayed in here. Here I'm going and adding some depth with this color, a darker. I'm using the same color, same shade, just a different viscosity, I guess you would say. I don't know. Would you say viscosity, or would you say... I don't know what you would actually say. Leave me a comment and tell me what that word should be. If you know. If you would, while you're doing that, hit the like button if you like this video, and give it a share and let other people see it. That would really help my channel out. I am trying to grow my channel, and I do play with a lot of different things, but I consider myself more of a mixed media artist because I like to play with so many different things. It keeps me from ever getting bored. But in doing that, it also keeps me from getting to be, from perfecting any one style. So there is a drawback to doing it that way, but I just continue to plug away and work on all of them at the same time, and I am happier that way, so that's what matters. If you're ever crafting or drawing or painting and you lose the joy and happiness in it, it's time to put it away. Let it go for a while until you're ready, and then you can step back when you find your joy again with it. And that's exactly how I feel about YouTube. If I'm enjoying it and I'm having fun, and I love to show you new things that I'm doing. I'm not perfect at anything. I never claim to be, so don't think I am. But if I ever lose my joy in doing YouTube, then you'll know, because I will end the channel. But I have no foresight of that ever happening in the near future. So thankfully, hopefully, we'll be together for a really long time. This is a lot of fun for me, and I've gotten to know so many of you in the community, and I'm really grateful for that. I'm grateful for the friendships that I'm making with you. And you'll see our Peony is starting to really come to life. Isn't she pretty? Peonies can be many different colors. I did look that up, just so you know, because I'd always thought peonies were only either white or pink. Just a very hint of pink, not very much. But they actually can be very vibrant in color, which was surprising to me when I looked that up. So I found that to be very interesting. You'll see me here, I'm just going over this with water. I'm just trying to blend those colors a little bit more so they're not quite so stark different. Just want a softer gradient blend there. And still using that silver black velvet brush, giving a little depth here on this petal, which is fine because that's the bottom of the petal. But if that were your top of your petal folding out, you wouldn't want your shadow there. But it's not in this painting, so it worked out. I am trying to add a little more definition right there in the center part and give a little bit of depth there. And it's interesting when you practice your strokes with your watercolor in order to get that line variation, how much you learn. I always thought it was crazy when people would tell me that you need to practice your lines. You need to work on your line variation. I thought, well, it's just a brush. It's going to do the same thing no matter what, but it's not. It makes such a difference when you practice the heaviness of your hand. You'll see here that I forgot to hit the button again. So we have finished that flower, and I believe we're fixing to go into working on the border of the painting. And for the border, I'm using a watered down black, and I just thought it would make all of the other colors pop really well. And we should be getting to that soon. I'm working on that mix is what I'm doing while we're just sitting here still. I am working on something. But I really do like it. Kind of turned out more of a gray kind of black. And I'm mixing a blue with the black in order to get me a little bit different shade than just the straight black. I did have to switch palettes. And for all of this, I was using my Turner Artist watercolors. And I happen to have found those in my craft closet. I don't know when I ever bought them, but I made a little palette out of them so I could start trying them. But I did switch back because there was no black in that set. And there is a black in my White Nights colors. And I love the White Night colors. So I switched back to that. You'll see that this brush is a little bit big for some of the more intricate areas, but it works really well for the larger areas. And so I will continue with this brush to get those larger areas, but I think, if I remember right, I switch and use a smaller brush for some of the details if I thought I couldn't get in there very good. But you see that little bit of a blue shade in that. It adds more interest to it than just that straight black would have been, because it was a neutral black. It wasn't any certain type of black, just neutral. And you could have also done Payne's Gray and used a little bit of blue with it, and that would have been beautiful. But I wanted it a little bit darker than the Payne's Gray would have been, and I ended up being very happy with the color choice in the end. You do have to work kind of quickly because you don't want to have lines in your work from where part of it is dried and part of it is wet, and they overlap. That will create a line in your work. So I'm continuing here to do this border. I will do a portion of it with you, but a portion of it I do off screen, just because it's kind of boring to sit there and watch me paint a solid color over all of this. But here you'll see that I'm getting into those berries, and they create quite a problem for me as far as trying to keep that stem in there. So definitely, if you do something like this, make sure you draw in a full stem and not just lines, because that will make a big difference in your outcome of your painting. I really am enjoying watercolor, and I'm enjoying gouache. The Caran d'Ache gouache palette that I have, I'm finding more and more use for it. I bought the Arteza gouache, and I've actually bought some of the Turner acrylic gouache, which I haven't gotten into using those yet. But I keep jumping back to that Caran d'Ache gouache palette because it is solid. They are solid blocks, and I don't have to open up a million different tubes of paint, and I get a wonderful coverage. I can get it to be more watered down and look more like watercolor, or I can leave it more opaque and be more like gouache, which is really nice and versatile. So I do recommend that palette if anyone is interested in knowing that. It is very handy, very easy to just pull out and use. It does come in a metal tin and has a mixing surface on one side. That's not saying anything negative about the tube gouaches. I'm sure they're wonderful. And so far, so good with the Arteza ones that I've tried. But if you're in a hurry, which usually I am rushing, then just grabbing a palette is really beneficial. And the Caran d'Ache ones are not that expensive. I think they were $30-something when I bought it, which is not bad for a full set. I think the Arteza ones were close to that when I bought them. And of course the Arteza ones, you have many more colors, where with the Caran d'Ache one you have to mix more. So I guess it depends on what your preference is. If you want more ready-made colors, then you may want to go with a tube set. But if you're good mixing, the Caran d'Ache one is amazing. I haven't had a Caran d'Ache product that I didn't like yet. I have used a couple of different brands of the watercolor crayons, and Caran d'Ache Neocolor 2s are by far the best ones of them that I've used. They have the best color and the best wettability. I guess I don't know if that's even a word, but so that is just my 2 cents on that little spot. And they retain their color pretty well when you wet them, and the color moves around more like watercolor than it does in any of the other ones I've used. You'll see that color is drying some there on the left-hand side, and you see what beautiful color it's turning out to be for the border. And so you see me here, I'm trying to get in those little spots, but I really should be switching to a smaller brush. But I'm trying, I'm working my brush, trying to see if I can get it light enough pressure in there to do just the area that it needs. Working around those berries, and you'll see I just start painting over where the stem is, because it really doesn't matter whether I do or I don't. It ends up ultimately covered. So that would be my one really big thing I'd say about this, is to draw your stems, the full stem. Don't get lazy like me. I'm lazy sometimes, yes. Do draw the full stem. I hope this video is more entertaining for you. It's easier for me to talk about what I'm doing after I've done it than it is while I'm doing it, because when I'm painting, I get really focused and stuck into what I'm doing, and so I tend to forget to talk. And if this works out good, then I will be able to actually guide you through what I'm doing, and just kind of have more conversation with you in the videos. And I personally like that when people do that with their videos. If they can talk while they work, awesome. But I'm just not that multi-talented. My brain and my mouth don't work together with my hand moving as well. I think that's what I'm trying to say. Oh. We're coming to the part where I am fixing to go off screen to paint the rest. But this has turned out to be so pretty, and I really have enjoyed it. I did the wash of color at first because I didn't want it to be just completely white behind the writing when I did the writing. My only thing there is I think I would have done a little bit more color, because it's kind of harder to see that, but it would have taken away from the colors in the writing. So touche, you know. Here we go. I have done the entire border, and it is working on